So in this video, I'm going to discuss the legitimacy of state intervention in other countries in framing the Ukraine and Russia conflict as an example. And so in recognizing that security is holistic, comprising of people, prosperity, and the planet, we have to appreciate the holistic effects of human security as impacted by international conflict. And so the first question is the conflict legitimate? Is the intervention illegitimate? And so for this question, we have to look at what territories Russia is invading. And so if it's like it comes to the two republics of the Donetsk and the Luhansk, then there is no doubt that it's of its legitimacy if its territory has been signed over those republics to formally to Russia from Ukraine in a treaty. And then any further escalations are called into question. Also, is it sustainable? What happens after the troops leave? So for example, if Russia is protecting its two republics that have been signed over, then it's going to ensure its sustainable development. However, when it comes to any other claims made by Ukraine, backed up by NATO, that would be a question of who in NATO is pushing this conflict via Ukraine, and that would be the US and its other backed allies. So in terms of NATO's claims over these two territories, I don't think it has any. I think it should back off, and it should maintain only the sovereignty of the nations that are indeed sovereign, and to help Ukraine in doing that. But when it comes to any excessive claims, I think that NATO is just entering and exacerbating the situation. The conflict is escalating as a result. What are actual NATO countries doing? The 40 or so, they're not doing anything to help Ukraine. Besides, economic sanctions. And that's not going to be sustainable because Russia is just going to respond with the same, and it's going to cause backlashes in the area and throughout the globe economically because of resources and trade. The solution is a decentralized, collaborative, democratic decision making of what countries are legitimately allowed to enter Ukraine and to help it, and in what way. However, look, we have to step back and look at the criteria to measure that, and that would be those two republics and Russia's legitimacy over them versus the other areas that would not have such a claim. And so without this oversight, NATO and the US are able to intervene in the Ukraine and cause the situation to escalate illegitimately. And this requires a collaboration with other organizations and governments, also at a local level, to develop some mechanisms for oversight, and criteria for interventions for transnational flow of ideas. So in essence, it's not as simple as Putin is the bad guy in invading Russia. There's other the US, it might be, and NATO might be more exacerbating the situation by urging Ukraine to to fire and to attack and to protect itself, when in fact NATO is actually not offering any solid support on the ground. So that being said, I think in this situation, that criteria would then go to the treaty, and the legitimacy of Putin having these two republics in the first place. And if that is valid, then this whole war is just actually just caused by the other powers, including the United States. And so we're looking at the wrong people. And the interest of the United States, currently there's many, including economic. These days, the wars are economically driven. If there's no actual physical threat on the ground, then it's usually an economic issue. Meanwhile, in Somalia, U.S. has been striking since yesterday. So again, looking at the interests and the interest of the collateral interest of the other states involved. Thank you.